evening and welcome to welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. Coming up this evening, Ghana Armed Forces resume recruitment in Accra after deadly El-Wak stampede. Tonight we assess the exercise, including the revised safety protocols instituted to avert last week's accident. And later in the bulletin, the New Patriotic Party's Presidential Elections Committee justifies its decision not to allow proxy voting during the upcoming presidential primaries. Why is that so? We'll dig into it for you. And later, rotation nurses and midwives for the 2024-2025 cohort threaten a nationwide demonstration if the Health Ministry fails to pay delayed allowances by end of November. We'll get the details and an update on this for you. We are live around the world on 3news.com. We are also streaming on Facebook and on YouTube, so do let your messages come in. Before we bring the details, though, here are the news summaries with Nurah Mohammed. Hello, Nurah.
Hello, Martin. Good evening. First in the summary, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Gold Board, Sammy Gyamfi, has urged member states of the Kimberley Process, KP, to embrace meaningful, forward-looking reforms that reflect the evolving realities of the global diamond trade. He made the call while addressing delegates at the 2025 Kimberley Process ministerial meeting in Dubai. Speaking on behalf of the Republic of Ghana, Mr. Gyamfi commended the United Arab Emirates for hosting the conference and reaffirmed Ghana's commitment to ethical and responsible mineral governance. Meanwhile, the Minister of Energy, Dr. John Jinapor, has officially inaugurated the Board of Nuclear Power Ghana, NPG, tasking its members to aggressively pursue and deliver on the nation's long-standing objective of integrating nuclear power into the national energy mix. Speaking at the inauguration ceremony, Dr. Jinapor stated he was acting on behalf of President John Dramani Mahama, underscoring the high-level commitment to the project. Also, the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Tourism Authority, GTA, Mame Efua Huajeto, has paid a working visit to the Inspector General of Police, COP Christian Tete Yohonu, at the police headquarters to discuss comprehensive security arrangements ahead of this year's December in Ghana celebrations. The meeting on Thursday, November 20, 2025, was attended by all commissioners of the Ghana Police Service. It focused on strategies to bolster safety across all event zones, hospitality centers, entertainment corridors, and high-traffic areas expected to host thousands of local and international visitors. Also, the government statistician Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu has announced that the provisional monthly indicator of economic growth, MIEG, is 5.1% for August 2025, up from 4.9% in August 2024. This means economic activities expanded by 5.1% in August 2025 compared to the expansion of 4.9% recorded in the same period in 2024, Dr. Al-Hassan Idrisu said at a press conference in Accra on Thursday, November 20. He also stated that agriculture showed strong growth of 7.4% in August 2025 compared to 2.3% in August 2024. And that'll be all for the summaries.
Thank you very much for the summaries, and you can get more of that on our website, 3news.com. But let's delve into the details of our stories we have for you this evening. We're starting from the Ghana Armed Forces recruitment exercise. You'd recall that last week there was a major challenge where some 6 Ghanaian female recruitment or persons that were interested in serving in the armed forces lost their lives as a result of a stampede. Well, the armed forces said that it had reviewed its processes, and today's exercise was going to be different from what we experienced last week. So we know that today was when they resumed after a compulsory order from the president for them to halt the process. It resumed today, and we are told that the exercise, especially in the Greater Accra region, has gone on smoothly, days after suspending the process due to the fatal stampede at the El-Wak Sports Stadium on Wednesday, the 12th of November. Screening resumed earlier this morning across 8 sub-centers to ease congestion and improve safety. The designated centers include the El-Wak Stadium, where they had 2 separate centers in one area, the Nicholson Park at Burma Camp, the Air Force Base also at Burma Camp, the Traddock area, which is in Teshi. That place also had 2 centers. And then the Eastern Naval Command, that was at Tema. Earlier, the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General William Ejapong, together with members of Parliament, Defense and Interior Committee, visited the El-Wak Sports Stadium to also inspect the restart of the exercise. The delegation was led by the committee chairman James Agalga, who led the team to tour the facility to assess the compliance with the newly introduced safety arrangement. Let's listen to Mr. Agalga moments after they had checked out how the new arrangements were playing out, and this is what he had to say.
And to see for ourselves. Fortunately, what we have seen is very satisfactory. I mean, it's impressive. We've seen that, yes, they have now formed quite a number of centers, teams, to simultaneously assess the eligibility of the applicants who are interested in joining the armed forces. We've also seen for ourselves that, look, the doctors are at work, the teams that are responsible for the documentation are also at work, and these things are happening simultaneously. And so from here, we are going to go to some other centers and see whether what we have seen at the El-Wak Stadium has been replicated over there. I am very convinced, because we've been briefed by the CDS that is what they have done across all the screening centers. So I'd like to use this opportunity to commend the CDS for the visionary leadership he has brought to bear, even in the face of the disaster that happened. I mean,
you heard James Agalga, who is the chair of the Security Committee in Parliament, and clearly they sound quite confident and convinced about the new arrangements that have been put in place. And if you're watching us on Facebook, where this bulletin is streaming, you'd also get to see some of the images and videos and pictures of today's exercise, where again several hundreds of our compatriots turned out to lend their bit to ensuring that they can help in the protection of our territory as a country. So beyond James Agalga, the chair of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Defense and Interior, after he spoke, we also got a few words from the Chief of Defense Staff, Lieutenant General William Ejapong, who said that following the unfortunate incident, they knew it was important as the military to put in the right measures to ensure that they did not have the events of last week repeating itself. So let's listen to the CDS speak to the media.
And let me also add that we want to commend the general public for adhering to the instructions that only non-applicants should get to the centers. But that has reduced the crowd level, and so things are going smoothly. I can also tell you that for the unfortunate ones who got injured, they are receiving medical treatment at 37. Some of them go in and out. Those who are still on admission are being taken care of well. I want to use this opportunity to convey to the bereaved family of the 6 young girls that on behalf of the Ghana Forces, we want to commiserate with them and to say that may their souls rest in peace. But for me, what is important is the lessons that we learned from this particular exercise. This has told us that we need to do things differently moving on. And from the next possible recruitment section, we will come out with measures that makes.
And you heard the Chief of Defense Staff there in the person of Lieutenant General William Ejapong, also speaking to the media after today's, or at the beginning of today's recruitment exercise into the Ghana Armed Forces. Let's speak to Armstrong Gold Alogbe, Joseph Armstrong Gold Alogbe, who is our defense correspondent, and he clearly has been quite interested in this right from the onset, has followed it through up until even the visitations to the families that lost loved ones as a result of the stampede, and today was very early at the centers, visited a number of the centers, and has joined us for a quick update. Armstrong, thank you for your time. To start with, has today's exercise ended, or people are still in the queue trying to get the registration process ongoing?
Martin, so I can confirm that today's exercise has ended. at the El-Wak Sports Stadium, particularly where I was at 4:30 p.m. The exercise ended there before I left the place, and I'm told it has also ended at other 6 centers that is scattered across parts of the capital or around the Bema camp area, and also one at the Eastern Naval Command, Martin.
And what can you tell us? Paint a picture for us generally. How different was today's exercise from that of last week?
Martin, today's exercise depicts what the military really stands for when it comes to discipline. You could see that everything was well coordinated. You don't need to speak much. There were enough demarcations to indicate to you where to pass, where not to pass, and you wouldn't see a lot of human interferences. When you walk into the main entrance of the gate, nobody will tell you this in and this out. And they created 2 different centers at one place. That is the A and B, where we have about 800 applicants seated on each camp, and they move in badges 10. You go for your documentation check-in, and then you go to your body selection. When you finish, you sit at one place. When your team is done, they move all of you. You pass through the outdoor area, and then you are escorted out from the center yard. So basically, I would say that today's exercise depicts what the military really stands for, which is a true discipline, Martin.
And clearly, those of our viewers and listeners who are following us on Facebook and on YouTube can see the clear difference from what we saw last week as against what we are seeing today, where people are actually seated under canopies. There's a very open space on the field, and it looks well coordinated to get to ensure that everybody goes through the process rightly. But what are some of the reactions you are picking from the recruits, those who are interested in joining the armed forces? What have they been telling you, comparing last week and today?
So today, the recruits, anybody you approach to speak to, the adamant, nobody was willing to open up to grant interview to any media personnel, particularly knowing what happened last week. And they were also told that soldiers do not speak to the media unless you are authorized. So even though we tried to speak to some of them, they refused to speak to us. But Martin, let me quickly add this one, that 2 people presented 2 forged documents, and then it was identified. They were handed over to the military police for further investigation. So we are told that other centers also recorded similar things, and the military police are going to take their time to probe how they really got those documentation and how the master carriers to come all the way to the center and present as their valid documents. So that is one thing that I want to add. And then earlier we had the Select Committee on Defense and Interior also coming to the place to assess the situation, and then of course they did say that they are so satisfied with what has been done today, and then they encourage the military to ensure that what happened last week does not repeat itself again, Martin.
Right. And Armstrong, finally, before you take leave of us, what is it supposed to be the final day today, or it's today and tomorrow across all centers?
So it's going to take place for the next 3 days, I'm told. That is, if after the next 3 days they still have many more people on standby, they will continue until the 4th and 6th day. So they've actually marked about 7 days for this entire exercise. So if you go to Eastern Naval Command, it then says, okay, if you have 7 days, then there's no need for us screening 800 people a day. So instead, let's do just 600, because not too many people apply for Navy. So when I got to the Eastern Naval Command this afternoon, they were almost done with the exercise. That's the time I got to that place, and I asked, why don't you have people applying? They said, no, we only asked 600 people to come in today because we have about 4 or so days to do this training, and we don't have so many people applying for Navy, so there's no need for us asking all of them to come the very same day. So tomorrow, the exercise continues, Martin.
Thank you very much. Armstrong Gold Alogbe is our defense correspondent and updating us on how today's exercise went in general. Let's go to Zoom now and engage Dr. Nanaya Akwada, who is Executive Director and Chief of Party of the Bureau of Public Safety. He's joined us for a quick conversation on today's development. Nanaya, very good evening to you. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
From a public safety standpoint, what do you make of the new measures that were introduced by the Ghana Armed Forces and the kind of reports you are picking up today following the resumption of the recruitment exercise?
Well, thank you very much. Let me continue to, express my deepest condolences to the families of the bereaved. Also, for those who are recovering from injuries, we wish them speedy recovery. I think that the Ghana Armed Forces somehow, following this incident, have discharged themselves creditably well. They have, asked officers involved, to step aside while investigation continues. They have brought in new, fresh brains, and the program is resumed and is going on very well. A couple of days back, we had hint of the arrangements that they have and how it has started rolling out very well, which I think they should be commended for that, for their speedy response to the situation. This is what is required of them. This is how armed forces of a state need to carry itself. It's our last backbone, our last defense. And if they become indisciplined, then we don't have a nation. And discipline is demonstrated in how you do things, how you treat your citizens. So I think it is very good. What we want to let them be aware is that it is not enough just for 6 people to die and for you to correct mistakes. The officers involved, people have paid with the ultimate price for other people's negligence. And it's important that those persons who are responsible for that are also sanctioned appropriately. Okay? They must be sanctioned appropriately so that we become a state or a nation where people are held accountable for negligence, accountable for their actions.
Right.
So let it not be said anywhere, or let nobody harbor that thought that because corrections have been made and process is now resumed and moving on smoothly, Ghanaians are going to bed. We would want to know the outcome of their investigations and the sanctions that apply to these persons, because the lives of 6 families has been altered for good.
Yes, and Doc, the military high command immediately changed the leadership of the recruitment exercise as one of the measures they introduced to ensure that they are investigated, and the role they played, or probably how they can help, would also be made public in terms of ensuring that we do not have a repetition of this particular issue. But you are asking that sanctions be applied. What kind of sanctions do you foresee or would you recommend, considering the fact that based on what the Ghana Armed Forces have been saying, they've been recruiting this way for several decades and it had worked for them? Just that the same thing you've done that was successful seemed to have gone wrong this time around. That is why they've also quickly reviewed the measures they are using in terms of the recruitment exercise. But what kind of sanctions do you advise that they mete out to these individuals who may have superintended the unfortunate day?
Well, I have not heard any military officer suggesting that this is the way they've been recruiting year on year successfully. And the key word here is successfully. It has always been characterized by chaos, right? And the military, that's not how they operate. They do not operate on previous successes, if assuming that even they were successful. They, by their training and by their operations, they do what we call situational appreciation with every mission, with every program, okay? So we are suggesting that in this particular instance, it was not done. You cannot tell me that you issue text messages inviting well over 20,000 people into a station with how many tables, and we're expecting to deal with everybody in 1 day or 2 days. The math is there for you to see. So it's the writing is on the wall. The military on this occasion, the Ghana Armed Forces on this occasion, did not do a proper situation appreciation before going into this. And that one should not, be allowed to be swept under the carpet or cover up. This is how we've been doing it every year. They are required by their operational mandates to review every operation or mission. Did they do that? Why didn't it come up to them? And if they did that, how did they do it? Who were involved? And how come they missed it? And that's why there's investigations going on. So that excuse should be thrown somewhere, right? Secondly, with the sanctions that should be pressed against them, I would want to see the highest, form of sanction. Maybe not the highest, but significant, corrections applied to them when the investigations are closed, right? Because 6 people have died.
Right.
We, as a nation, have been ridiculed. This made the international news. It was on CNN. It was on BBC. It was on Al Jazeera. Okay?
Right.
And this is from the Ghana Armed Forces, a very respected, force across the world. So we must not allow this to go. And if the Ghana Armed Forces, command is listening to this, they must make sure that they redeem themselves. And the only way they will redeem themselves is to take these people through a disciplinary process, apply the required or measured sanctions to them that will assuage not only the pain of the nation, but the bereaved family, and also, buy back some trust.
Right.
It's absolutely important that they treat this matter with a level of attention that it requires.
You are with the Bureau of Public Safety, and this is a major public safety faux pas from the Ghana Armed Forces. They totally missed it. But the argument they made, or the position they shared, was that today's exercise, for instance, based on all the reports we are gathering, has been successful, and they might probably in the next few years use the same strategy whilst amending it going forward. But the argument they make is that if today's strategy works, it looks like if this strategy is working, you might want to retain it while you're amending it going forward. So that was the mindset they approached the recruitment with last week. Going forward, how do you advise, to reduce public safety concerns for a recruitment exercise? Should they probably modernize it more? And since you need to look at the physical appearance of the recruits, it will still mean that there will be a people-to-people meeting or physical meeting of the individuals. How can they, what kinds of systems would you advise they put in place so that then, in as much as they are modernizing the system using technology, they still have ways of ensuring that even when you are meeting people in numbers for a recruitment, you're still doing it the right way?
Well, thank you, my brother. You see, it appears that you have bought into this excuse of that's how we used to do it, and it was good, and even with this new change that has come, we are going to maintain it until another time when 6 people die, then we'll review it. That's wrong. Okay? When you are dealing with humans, mass gatherings, you cannot say this is how we do it all the time. Continuously, you can check across the world. The process by which people gather when you are doing mass recruitment, anywhere in the world, I don't know where people do such mass recruitment, but where you are bringing people together, in a crowd, in numbers, there must always be an improvement. There must always be a review of the process. I used to run a drama group in the 1990s and the early 2000s. After every drama, we sit down to do what we call postmortem analysis. We look at the play that we staged. We look at the patrons who came. We looked at how the entry process were handled, and at every stage we were reviewing this and making changes. Okay, so the Ghana Armed Forces should not, and I don't believe that they have, said that they are going to maintain this process. And if you are going to maintain the process, then we will come back to that level where another set of people will die before it initiates a change. They must constantly be reviewing this change. The process they have in place now is working well against the previous process, but they can improve it, they can make it better. So that's what we require that they do. And they don't need to invent, the wheels. There are countries that are recruiting. What's our numerical strength in the Ghana Armed Forces? Okay, look at countries like Germany. They have higher numbers, and yet they recruit, and we don't hear a single death in the recruitment process. Look at the United States, the United Kingdom. So there are benchmarks, okay, that we could look at and borrow from. We don't need to reinvent the wheels. As to leveraging AI or technology in this process, I think that it's not lost on us. I mean, the mere fact that they are sending text messages is a demonstration that they recognize times have changed and they can leverage on this. So they should leverage on this. Okay. Maybe moving forward, we are going to see them create a portal where individuals go there and book their own appointment for each day. The numbers are cast in stone. Once the numbers are full, they are full. You need to move to another date and book yourself. So we don't have to sit down and work around in it. You book your own when you want to go and everything. Okay. So I think that they can leverage on technology to make the process better. But it is important that after every year, after every process, they conduct a post-mortem analysis, review the process, and improve on it.
Okay. Thank you so much for your thoughts and analysis you bring to this subject. We are grateful that you made time to speak to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
And you heard Dr. Nana Yao Akwada, Executive Director and Chief of Party of the Bureau of Public Safety, and has been speaking to us regarding the recruitment exercise of the Ghana Armed Forces. The new phase they showed today, according to a number of the reports we are getting, seem to have worked or is working for them. And so in the next few days, as the exercise continues, we would still be assessing and be updating the public regarding that. Let's now speak to a fraud and security consultant, Richard Kumado, who has joined us. Mr. Kumado, thank you for your time. What assessment do you have you made of the new strategy of recruitment being deployed today by the armed forces?
I think so far we haven't had any hiccup. Our monitoring shows that the procedure has worked. We want to commend the Ghana Armed Forces. This is the Ghana Armed Forces we are talking about, one of the best among the best in the world. We know they have the capacity, they have the expertise, they have the experience. And once they come to the field with the same strength, with the same capacity and the determination to get a job done, they will definitely get it done. And what we have seen today, I am happy and I'm commending them and believing and hoping that subsequently they will maintain the same momentum and they will get this thing done, because these are not numbers that are huge and the Ghana Armed Forces cannot deal with it.
And we know that the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament went there to assess it for themselves. The Chief of Defense Staff himself was also at a number of the stations where this exercise is happening. Generally, does that give you a sense that the state apparatus took it serious? In fact, the president on the first day the issue happened was there himself. What does this tell you about how serious the nation, the leadership of the nation and the army is taking this?
We are people that will want to react instead of being proactive. And so you saw on Wednesday when the disaster struck, everybody was reacting and everybody was coming to the fore. So you are creating the premises for the onlookers to say what went wrong. Couldn't you have done A, B, C, D? Do you have to let 6 people die? And my junior brother who spoke before you put me on, you heard the questions he was asking. And you heard the things he was talking about. This is the Ghana Armed Forces. So you let yourself down, you put out a procedure that is a cake that did not give us the results we're looking for. And you put up a recruitment process, which you could have done the review process long ago, and it presupposes that you did not do it, or you brought officers to the table who were not prepared. Because there was the same exercise in Ho, we didn't have the number of casualties in Greater Accra. There was the same exercise across the country, and Greater Accra was in chaos. It means that lack of preparedness and seriousness and readiness to get a job done was what led them down. When there was chaos, everybody came around reacting. You took those officers aside and you brought in new people. And we all agreed that there's the need to increase the numbers who would deal with the children. Today you have done it and it worked for you. We all agreed that let's use Accra Sports Stadium, let's use Legon Stadium, Botema Stadium. But you thought otherwise because you are the Ghana Armed Forces, who we are proud of and we cherish you. And you said that, okay, let's give the children first day experience. Let's take them into the military barracks, set up a space for them, and create a space for them. Martin, I can tell you, some of these children go into the Air Force base, the Naval base, it will change them for life. Their perception, their view about life and the Ghana Armed Forces is going to change for life. And look at the successes you've talked so far. Kudos to them. We are happy for them. We clap for them. And we are encouraging them that this is the army we love and we hold them in high esteem. They should get a job done. Whilst we are looking at what happened, and let's bury the dead and make sure the injured are healed. Today, they have demonstrated once again that this is the Ghana Armed Forces who we are proud of.
Certainly so. And my final question to you would be the role of intelligence and crowd management systems. How should they approach it, and especially to ensure that there is improved public safety when we are undertaking our recruitments? What are the key issues they need to be paying attention to?
This is the Ghana Armed Forces. I don't think they lack intelligence, and I don't think they lack personnel when it comes to crowd control. Some people were not ready for the job. Some people were not prepared. They came unprepared. They came with lousy instructions that were not getting the message passed across. I can tell you, Marty, you know the Ghana Armed Forces better than I do. What have they done differently today? Two simple things they have done. They changed the venue, they changed the personnel, and they get a job done. So we don't need a prophet or a soothsayer to say to the Ghana Armed Forces, and Marty, let me teach them small. If they are not careful and Papa Police do far better than them, then Christmas there will be no jama for them.
Okay.
There will be no jama for them because they be the army.
Yeah.
Papa Police is watching. If they are not careful and Papa Police and immigration do far better than them, then we'll move the sanctuary to the immigration center at Ofotu. So they have to be careful. This is the army. We love them. They should do their job and let's go, man.
Certainly. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts as always. And you had Mr. Kumado, Richard Kumado, who is a fraud and security consultant there, also sharing his thoughts on today's exercise and the fact that in as much as many were disappointed about how the Ghana Armed Forces approached the recruitment exercise last week, today's rendition of the same exercise has shown that, yes, they are up to the task and can do much better going forward. So we would update you in the coming days to ensure that you are also in the loop of how the entirety of the exercise pans out. You're listening to 3FM. This is 92.7, and you're listening to Hot Edition live from our studio here at Adisa Wikanda in Accra. Staying on issues of security and Ghana Armed Forces and soldiers, you would recall that a few years ago, a name known as Major Mahama was in the news for a number of reasons. Well, today in court, the Court of Appeal has acquitted and discharged the former assemblyman of the Dentroboase area, which is William Ba. Now, you recall that Dentroboase was where Major Mahama was unfortunately lynched in the line of duty by residents of the area. The Court of Appeal ruled that the evidence and witness testimonies relied upon by the High Court were insufficient and did not support the conclusion leading to his conviction and sentencing. Lord Eduasare is a man who was in court and has filed this report.
On January 29, 2024, a 7-member jury returned a guilty verdict against William Barr and 11 others who were sentenced to life imprisonment for their roles in the murder of Major Adams Mahama after they were convicted by the Accra High Court. The former assemblyman for Dentra Boase in their central region was found guilty on the charge of abetment of murder. Bernard Asamoah, Kofi Nyame, Akwesi Ban, Kwame Tufo, Joseph Apia-Kubi, Michael Enim, Akwesi Asante, Charles Queening, Emmanuel Beidu, John Boasi, and Kwejo Enima were found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. The jury also returned a guilty verdict on the charge of murder against Asamoah, Nyame, Ban, Tufo, Kubi, Enim, Asante, and Queening. Two others, Bismarck Donko and Bismarck Abanga, who stood trial alongside the 12, were however acquitted and discharged after the jury returned a verdict of not guilty to the charge of conspiracy to commit murder. A 3-member panel of justices of the Court of Appeal on Thursday, November 20, in a unanimous judgment, held that the trial judge in the matter misdirected the jury and that the evidence of the prosecution witnesses 8 and 11 did not corroborate with each other. Overwhelmed with emotion, William Ba broke down in tears after hearing that he had been acquitted and discharged. Lawyer for the former assemblyman, George Bernard Shaw, expressed delight over the court's decision.
The most dramatic was what happened in the courts at the Terminal Court 3 when the uncle of the late Major Mahama, may he rest in peace, accosted me openly and tried to shove a blow down my spine. And taking the judge to arrange for a police escort to take you out of the court services. I'm very emotional. In a way, actually, I'm not really like that one word in the case.
One of the 3-member panel of justices, Ernest Osudapa, advocated for public education against instant justice of alleged criminals. He indicated that the ordeal of the late Major Adams Mahama was a very sad one and one that he did not deserve. However, justice had to prevail. Lord Idwasari.
And that's Lord Idwasari reporting from the court there. Let's go to the phone lines now and engage George Bernard Shaw, who is the lawyer for the assemblyman who was behind bars as a result of the unfortunate incident at Dentra Boase a few years ago. Fortunately today, or well, depending on how the case went, today he's been acquitted and discharged. Let's speak to his lawyer now. Thank you, sir, for your time, Mr. Bernard Shaw. How's your client feeling following the news of his acquittal?
Basically, he's overcome by emotion. That's the simplest I will put.
And he definitely feels that he had been dealt a wrong blow by the state in the entirety of the trial, and things could have gone better. Does that give him the sense of that at least justice has finally been served?
Yes. Don't forget he was an assemblyman on the verge of becoming an MP when all this happened, and thereby curtailing and halting his political career. Yeah.
So what are the next steps? I mean, beyond this acquittal, does he intend to ask for some compensation?
It goes without saying, because our Constitution on the Article 14(7) makes that provision that if you are wrongfully convicted, then you deserve compensation. This is even more so when, like I've already alluded to, he was a promising politician who on the verge of becoming an MP, and also he was a teacher, and most of all, he lost his liberty. He was incarcerated away from his family, from his newly born child, and has been away languishing in Sabom all this time. Yeah. So it goes without saying that we will apply for compensation, even though monetary gains would not eliminate the pain, the suffering, the trauma that he has gone through, but at least it will be a start, and it will be somehow have a cathartic influence on the rest of his life.
Right, and talk to us about, for those who may not understand really what happened, how come he was incarcerated and now, is it that new evidence has been brought, or there actually was no evidence to start with, but he was just behind bars, and it is now that the jury say he is clean and should be let go? How did all of this play out, if you can sum it up for us?
No, this, right from day one, if you had, or anyone who had been following the case, right from day one when they were arrested and I got hold of the case, I was very vociferous in saying that the charges against him should be dropped, in the sense that the charge that they charged him with, which was basically abetting crime. What it means in simple terms is that if somebody is going to commit a crime and you assist them, or you procure something for them, or you encourage them, or you instigate, or you command, all those things, and for them to go and do it, and you also have the intention that you are supporting them or commanding them or instigating them for them to kill, then abatement will stand. Right from at the outset, there was nothing, not a scintilla of evidence that pointed to that. But because of the unfortunate way the captain died, may his soul rest in peace again, there was an emotional uproar in the country, and there was pressure on the police and the prosecutors to bring some people to book. So all these things were ignored, and basically public opinion who were using wrong facts led to his conviction.
Okay. We thank you, and we wish him all the best, and so we just hope that he's able to find some calm. And we also heard that earlier, just when the ruling ended, family members of Captain Major Mahama wanted to assault you. You actually were nearly hit by a blow. Is that the case? And do you intend taking any actions in that direction?
No, that's water under the bridge. All we ask for is for you, the media, to help the public. You help in the education of the public that, one, there's a constitutional guarantee of the right to a lawyer. Also, the same constitution says that presumption of innocence is paramount. So the fact that someone is accused of crime doesn't mean they have done it. We have to go through the rigmarole of law and subject the evidence to proper and anxious scrutiny. And if a court then convicts you, then you have no cause to complain. Right. So many people do not understand this plain and clear fiat. So they think criminal defense lawyers sometimes basically get up to fight for criminals. No, they are not criminals until the evidence points that way. Right. So I do forgive the people who accosted me. My car was vandalized when the case started and all that. I don't hold it. I just think it's from ignorance. Okay. But closer to home, if their family members or somebody close to you is wrongly accused and convicted, maybe they will understand. But please help us with the press, the press, media, and everything, in educating the public about some of these issues. Absolutely. So that we can also live peacefully and do our job.
Absolutely. We are grateful for your time, and thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
And you've been hearing the voice of George Bernard Shaw, who is lawyer for the Assemblyman of Denchon Boase, who has been acquitted after almost 4 years or so, 2-3 years of the case having run in court. He's finally been acquitted, or was convicted and now acquitted, and he's a free man. but it's a very emotional subject. So anytime it comes up, people actually are more emotional than reasonable. And like he indicated, family members of Major Mohammed actually accosted him or attacked him, because they are quite still emotional about the entirety of the story or the issue. So we see, and again, we all need to be minded. Let's not allow emotions to take the best of us. It's I'm told that this issue has run for almost 8 years or more, and it's an unfortunate, very unfortunate incident that a soldier would die in the line of duty. So we would update you in coming days to see what else the Council for William Barr intend to do. He says they will be seeking compensation of wrongful incarceration. So we would update you on that as well. This is still 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition live from our studio here at Adisanwe Kanda in Accra. Let's turn our attention to health now. And rotation nurses and midwives in the 2024-2025 cohort are threatening a nationwide demonstration if the Ministry of Health fails to pay their long delayed rotation allowances by the end of November. In a statement, the group said they will picket at the ministry and take to the streets to demand months of unpaid allowances despite completing their clinical duties. They say that the continued delay in clearance and payment has left many of them financially distressed. They also referenced an earlier assurance from the Health Minister, Kwabena Mintah Kando, on October 13, promising clearance for more than 17,000 rotational health professionals and the release of allowances this month. However, with just days to the end of the month of November, the group says no progress has been made so far, or at least they have not seen anything in that regard. So how is all of this playing out? Let's now go and speak to Anwar Sadat Swala, a leading member of the rotation nurses and midwives. Good evening, sir. Thank you for joining us on 3FM. Hello. Right. So let's also now speak to Mavis Frimpong, former General Secretary of the Rotational Nurses and a convener of the group. Mavis Frimpong, good evening. Thank you for joining us. Unfortunately, we seem to have lost the line there, but clearly it is a concern for individuals who are quite concerned about their nurses, their allowances, which the state, although the state promised them, have not been paid for a number of years now. And clearly it looks as though that their decision to embark on strike at the end of the month is going to be quite dire, because these are critical service providers, health providers. So we really need to get to the bottom of this. We'll try and, in the subsequent bulletins, update you on what government's position is in trying to ensure that their allowances are paid, so they do not leave the theater and the hospitals to be on the streets demonstrating. 3FM is the station, 92.7 is the dial, Hot Edition is the program. Stay with us. Business News is up next with Bismarck Ewusa.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ewusa. Coming up tonight, GNCCI warns government's planned return to domestic capital market could crowd out private sector as businesses face tight credit conditions. This story and others lined up for you. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. The Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industries urging government to rethink its plan to return to the domestic capital market, warning the move could further tighten credit conditions and crowd out private businesses. President of the chamber, Stefan Miezan, says although government intends to refinance existing obligations rather than accumulate new debt, re-entering the market now could intensify competition for funds at a time when many firms are already struggling to access affordable credit.
Consider its plans to re-enter the domestic bond market, even with a cautious approach, to avoid crowding out the private sector and to prevent a return to debt distress. We believe it is too early in the days to start accruing additional debts. Lastly, we also want to recommend the government to explore public-private partnerships options, including partnerships with domestic private sector investors as an alternative to additional borrowing. Most importantly, the success of this budget depends on effective implementation. We urge government to remain steadfast in ensuring its full execution. Over the years, we have observed well-designed policies presented in national budget but left unimplemented.
And that was the president of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Stefan Miezan. Before we go, the Association of Ghana Industries has intensified its call for the government to introduce deliberate policies aimed at significantly reducing the cost of factors of production for the industrial sector. This appeal was made by an executive member of the AGI, Eric Defo, during the recent Deloitte Economic Dialogue, focusing on proposals for the 2026 national budget.
Access to capital and its cost is not favorable. The cost of power is not favorable. Sometimes in manufacturing, we forget that excess capacity in itself is a cost. So once we scale up and we are maximizing our capacity, cost will also come down. Taxation is not favorable. And then we have all the other dynamics within the West African sub-region, where our involvement in the ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme allows imports to come in virtually zero tariffs. So you find that the VAT rates even in those neighboring countries are lower than ours.
And that was executive member of the AGI, Eric Defo, bringing us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck. Also, for more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Sports news is next with Bill Eshen. Please stay.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Eshen. We start off from the African continent where Achraf Hakimi managed to win the CAF Men's Player of the Year award in the 2025 CAF Awards. Pepe Mohamed Salah and Victor Osimhen to clinch that particular accolade. Now my colleague Andrew Sefat Banfo looks at how he did it with an impressive year.
It's been 52 years since a defender last won the African Player of the Year award. 27 years since a Moroccan last did so. It had to take a special season to rewrite the script, and that is what Achraf Hakimi did. The Paris Saint-Germain right-back succeeded Ademola Lookman as the best player on the continent after a trophy-laden campaign, beating off competition from Mohamed Salah and Victor Osimhen. Hakimi played a starring role as PSG strode to the Champions League trophy for the first time in their history, while helping the French club to the Ligue 1 title, Coupe de France, the French Super Cup, and the UEFA Super Cup. Individually, Hakimi produced 21 goal involvement in the 2024-2025 season and finished second in the Ballon d'Or ranking. As Morocco prepares to host the 2025 AFCON, Hakimi, who produced 4 assists in the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, will play a crucial role in their bid to end their trophy drought.
That was my colleague Andrew Sefa Banfo. Now, the intercontinental playoffs have been completed earlier today. There was a draw that was made, and 6 teams will be competing for 2 World Cup qualification slots. Now, here is 3 Sports looking at how those qualifications work. 6 slots remain in the 2026 World Cup, but let's talk about 2 particular slots that relates to the intercontinental playoffs. Now, 6 teams are involved in that, including Bolivia, Suriname, Iraq, Jamaica, we have DR Congo, we have New Caledonia, all battling for these slots. But for DR Congo and Iraq, they are actually well placed. They are already set in the final, and there are 2 pathways involved. For the pathway that involves DR Congo, there is, of course, New Caledonia, who will be facing Jamaica, and the winner of that particular encounter will be facing DR Congo for 1 slot in the 2026 World Cup. In the other pathway, which will feature Iraq, who will be resting in the final, it involves, of course, Suriname and Bolivia. Now, the winner of that Suriname and Bolivia game will be facing Iraq for that other slot in the 2026 World Cup. And so these are the teams who will be competing, and we'll see them compete in Mexico in March for those 2 slots. Of course, the other 4 slots remaining will be competed for by a number of European countries in there as well. But these 2 slots, we could see possibly DR Congo making the World Cup for the first time since 1974, or we could see other teams also making up the slots in the 2026 World Cup. That was a look at how the intercontinental playoffs work. Now, before I do go, tonight we'll bring you the remarkable story of a young man whose life changed in a single moment. What began as an innocent attempt to try a new sport ended in a devastating accident that left Mohammed Abdullah paralyzed and fighting for a future he never imagined. So here's the snippet of that story. Popular theoretical physicist Albert Einstein once said, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new." The quote highlights the importance of taking risks as a pathway for future success. For Mohammed Abdullah, however, one risk, one attempt at trying an unfamiliar sport changed his life forever. A single jump landed him in a wheelchair, dependent on a urinary catheter, a flexible tube inserted into the bladder to drain urine, a reality he's lived with for nearly a decade.
Because of this, me need friend be a mission inside, and emotional side and so I did.
Now that story, the full story, airs tonight on News 360 on TV3 at 7:45 p.m. The sports segment, bringing an end to sports here on the 3FM Hot Edition, and bringing an end to the entirety of Hot Edition. We'll be back on Friday with a lot more updates. Until then, have a great evening.